So Jody, I really got excited when we were talking about you joining us in Ecologics, and there's a fullness that we have as a novelty that we're contributing to the marketplace. Talk about that for us.
What I think we are bringing in the marketplace today is certainly built on the shoulders of many who have gone before us. So there have been a whole series of improvements in the way we look at organizations, in the way that we think about how organizations work the way they do. There was an inflection point in the 70s and 80s where we started recognizing that organizations were really systems and that we needed to look from a more holistic framework rather than the parts and the pieces. So HR is doing this, and operations is doing this, and
the silos.
And the silos. And that silos really weren't an effective way of getting things done, and in fact created all sorts of barriers to getting things done. And so I think one piece is that we're still carrying the learning and the growth that all of us in business who've really taken this on as part of something that's important to us really has a feel for in terms of working with organizations as a system. And then my perspective has always been strategy, and strategy really works from what's going on within the organization in the way that it relates outside the organization. So the market, the customers, the suppliers, the whole milieu, the environment in which it's operating, and recognizing that there is an interaction, and successful organizations renew themselves and find a way of moving as the environment moves so that they continue to thrive and to work forward. So I think we're also building on that perspective as well. So now we're thinking about systems interacting with larger systems and other systems and how they come together. So that's a piece of it that that perspective is we're bringing.
I think there's another piece of that. You know, we went from silos to turning the concept of business on its side, and so things began to be horizontal.
Right, the value chain.
The value chain,
yes.
And the holistic sense then that we could actually make of the flow of what's happening in between businesses, actually.
Right.
And what responsibility we have to serve that.
So what we're building on there is process improvement within and value chain improvement interactively with parts and pieces of the broader system of getting something from raw material to finished product and out in the marketplace on it. So yeah,
and
that,
then having the feedback of the customer afterwards so
in
that
the
they're actually
marketplace.
contributing.
Absolutely, yeah. So that whole piece, and yet I think until, if we move in and look at in the 90s, Peter Senge and others started, not only building on systems thinking, but also saying, how do you grow the capacity of the organization to actually see itself as a system? And from a holistic standpoint, we're looking at, it isn't just the rational, objective, concreteness of the organization.
Thank God.
Of products.
Yes. We're into that expansion.
The system is neither top down nor is it bottom up, but it is actually an interaction
Both
across. It's a both and.
Across,
And so we're bringing in, how do you work with organizations from a both and perspective, from a holistic perspective? So that means we're looking at the individuals and what the individual capabilities are. So leadership development then becomes particularly important. And by that, you and I mean leadership development at every level of the organization, that there's as much leadership within a team as there may well be within the C-suites of the organization. We're also talking about the individual contributions and what people skills and capabilities they bring.
And not just rewarding that. You know, we've been kind of stuck in a paradigm where it's individual heroism
Right.
that gets rewarded.
Right.
And
Right.
thank God we're coming out of that also.
Yeah.
We're recognizing group performance.
Yes. So there's something beyond the hero's journey that makes organizations successful. And that's actually being able to build the skills to allow for generative transformation. What that calls for is to not only understand the individual and individual capabilities, but also to understand the interaction of the collective and the concrete structural elements of the organization and how they support or don't support the ability of the organization to move forward in a holistic approach.
In observable action. You know, what are the patterns that we see taking
Right.
place?
Right.
And what are the individual's contribution to that, as well as the small groups, as well as the organizational units and so forth?
Yeah, so there's a development of capacity at multiple levels of the organization in all of those arenas of individual and group, of what we're experiencing, what we're feeling, what we're sensing into, and getting directional input in, as well as the objective data, the metrics, the necessary structure, the necessary processes that are critically important. But I believe we bring it in a way that they're alive, that they're dynamic, and that they have the ability to interact with the greater whole, with the marketplace on a global basis, and evolve in the sense of growth.
We were talking earlier about this choice we're making about serving financial entities. And in terms of financial due diligence, that is more mental, it seems, whereas this approach we're taking really brings in more of that holism that you're describing.
So one of the things that this says to me is that we're in the process of working with things in the moment. And we're bringing a process that allows the answers to emerge within the organization.
That we didn't know beforehand.
That we didn't know beforehand. And that aspect is very different. We aren't consultants who are coming in with the answer. We're consultants who come in with a way of the organization to create its answer that lets them be successful in the marketplace.
And brings them joy.
And joy and a sense of competency, a sense of capacity to do, a willingness to take risk, a willingness to step into the unknown and have a sense of trust of oneself, trust of one's peers, and trust of their capacity to put things together on their own.
You've just demonstrated why my joy was so strong when you said, "Oh yeah, I want to join Ecologics." And I went, "Oh,